Welcome to the JB Font channel. I am your host, JamesBFauntleroy. So good to see all of you here. Tuesday afternoon. Good to have you guys here. Awesome. The JB Font channel is also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. So you can find me there every single Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you guys can always tune in to me there. You guys can also tune to me on RBN on Sundays for the JB show at 1 and on Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show at 5 p.m. Also, if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps me out very much to be able to reach more people and also to be able to inform and inspire if I can. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you guys would like to, you can subscribe to my Substack at jbfaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles, so you have that there. And if you would like for me to do a reaction or give you guys a recorded response, you guys can actually go and send me a QBounty at qbounty.com/JBFaunt. So thank you very much for that there. Well. It is going to be a good and busy day for us today to have some stories to talk about. So if you guys have not already, go ahead and start saying your salutations up in the chat so we can say hello to all of you. We're going to check to see and to make sure if we got anybody talking or speaking in other places like the Rock Fan and the Rumbles. And if not, then we're going to go to just our general chat. So we're going to see that here. So we're going to start off right quick with CBC Voter coming in saying happy Tuesday at JB. Nice seeing you on Kit Cabello's show this morning. Yes, I was on Heartlands Media this morning. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can go and check that out. It was always a good time to talk to Kit, especially regarding what's going on as of late, as of yesterday. Yes, it was a good time to do that. So I hope you guys were able to actually get into that. So if not, you guys can always watch on the rewatch a little bit later. But yes, shout out to Kit and Daniel of Heartlands Media. Thank you so very much for having me on. It was a pleasure to come on, and I can't wait to see you guys back on here as well. Roger says, call Sergio. He had to skip dialysis because he was sick. Okay, I will do that. Thank you so very much for that, Roger. Jacqueline says, hey, JB Fonts, CBC Voter, and Roger Meadows. Has anyone else who's lurking? Don't know what I'm feeling so bloody cheerful about. Well, you know what? It is good to be cheerful just for the sake of it, just for the hell of it. Like, why not? Like, don't question it, just enjoy it. And I'm glad that you're feeling cheerful today. It is good to see you as always, Jacqueline. Nice to have you here. Kenneth coming in saying, hey, Jay, it's snowing in Alabama, Florida state line area. Look, I saw that we're having reports that it's going to be snowfall in North Florida tomorrow. This is going to be interesting because the last time I ever heard about snowfall in Florida, I was very little. I think it came down, and as soon as it hit the ground, it melted, right? That's snowfall in Florida. But look, I know, look, to all of you guys who are up north, I know we don't know snow like y'all do. That we know, we get that. But it's rare for us to get any snowfall in this state at all. So for us to get it, it is an event. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. So I'm excited for people. We'll see exactly how things go. I just hope that people are safe. I hope that, the roads might get a little icy out there. So please try to stay home if you can. If you have to venture out, please be very safe on those roads because a lot of people are going to need to get to work, things like that. I think kids may still have to go to school, but still, I just want people to be as safe as possible. And also, if you are able to do any type of mutual aid, just to make sure that your unhoused neighbors or your neighbors that are, not as well off as, some others, if you're able to help them to make sure that they have all the things they need, food, water, things to keep warm, because some of us may not have central heating, some of us may have space heaters or something like that. You never know, right? Some of us don't have heaters like that because we live in Florida, right? It's always hot. So in the rare times where it gets this cold, yeah, sometimes it gets a little difficult. So, can you uh, heating blankets, right? How much are those? So help people out wherever you can, and have solidarity with your fellow workers. So thank you very much for that. CEB Applejack, good to see you. CEB Applejack says came down hard here in Cleveland, Ohio. Ooh, you in Ohio? I know. And don't you guys also get that lake effect snow as well? Kind of like in Illinois. Um, yeah, don't you guys get that a little bit? But yeah, it's crazy, man. It's good. The polar vortex is vortexing. CEB Applejack also says, salute JB, my brother. Savage Gang is at it again, raising money. Hope you're safe. Yep. Thank you so very much. And I see that you're doing the mutual aid thing. It is very nice to see that as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. All right. So what are we talking about today? Let's get into that. So as you guys saw from the thumbnail, we got 3 topics we're going to be talking about today. It's been a busy weekend. So we're going to be talking about first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's going to be later in the show. So we're going to be talking about cheap furniture and workers. So how does shoddy furniture for profit hurt workers? Well, this is going to be a reaction to a video. So I want to get into that. That's going to be really interesting. This is why you see a dilapidated old couch there. Look, we got to talk about it, right? Then we're going to be discussing the Trump inauguration. So the highlights from the Trump inauguration, that was yesterday. We're going to be discussing that, and also his day one actions that he's been taking. So I can't wait to get into that. I have to say that I did watch the inauguration speech live, and I definitely have my notes, and I want to follow up exactly what happened. And there's some things that have happened that Trump hit the ground running. So we're going to discuss that as well. But our first story we're going to be touching on is nurses versus AI. This is something that should give everybody pause. And so we're going to be getting into that. So we're going to do that right now. So look, guys, we got to keep your eyes peeled. So what we're going to do is go to our first one, nurses versus AI. Starting right now. When it comes to being a patient, I know quite a bit, being a person that's on dialysis. I see nurses 3 times a week. And so when I came across this story, it gave me pause. We've been using AI for so many things now, but it's becoming very close to home. Nursing. Could this be a positive or could it be a negative? Well, nurses have actually gathered and they're telling us with a strong voice. So let's take a look at that.
Their place of work. Today, nurses took to the streets to protest. You see the nurses here with signs that read, "Our patients, our union, our rights." Today, they told us the use of AI limits the nurses' ability to do their job effectively. Wink News reporter Jillian Haggerty tells us what AI in hospitals looks like.
Hospitals in Southwest Florida are integrating artificial intelligence into their daily operations. Fawcett Hospital in Port Charlotte is just one of those locations. However, some nurses aren't happy about it. Nurses chanting to be heard, worried about the impacts of AI, especially with patient care.
AI, it's just like a tunnel vision. Like it limits the nurse's ability to do their job effectively.
Valerie Jean, a float pool registered nurse at Fawcett Hospital, explained how AI almost negatively affected a patient.
That everything looked good on paper. Everything looked good on paper. But when you saw him at the bedside, he didn't look good. So that's why we need the human touch.
Jean says human connection is one of the most important parts of her job, interacting with patients, not generated data.
Everyone is different, and the AI is just generating one single picture of one person.
Jean added nurses aren't against AI, but
It's okay to deliver food, but it's not okay to, use a robot to try to save a person's life.
Let me ask you guys a question really quick. How would you feel about AI actually doing the job of a nurse instead of a human nurse treating you? Does that make you feel comfortable, or does that make you feel apprehensive? Let me know in the comments, because as somebody that gets seen regularly, I would say, yeah, but give me a human being. Look, I know you guys get those phone calls, right? Where somebody's on the phone with you and it's, and you notice it's AI trying to get answers from you, especially during the open enrollment season for healthcare, right? You get these AI bots that call you and say, hello, I'm here to see about your coverage for such and such. Are you a Medicare recipient? And it's just like, and you're like, is this a recording or is this, automated message? And then they'll respond with, oh, no, I just speak through a computer, so I kind of sound like this. When in reality, it's actually AI. It's crazy, man. Anyway, let's continue.
It's just not the same.
I asked Leonardo DeCastro, a professor and expert at FGCU, about AI playing a role in hospitals. He said it's a very demanding career and it's all about balance.
The machine can be a very good assistant for the nurses. And I also believe that they have to participate in the process of developing and implementing, integrating these solutions in the hospital.
For now, nurses will be waiting for solutions that prioritize quality patient care. Reporting in Port Charlotte, Jillian Haggerty.
So that gave me a lot of pause as of recently. And so when it comes to especially the use of AI within hospitals and clinics in regards to nurses, it sounds to me like this is a way to reduce cost. But at what cost? Who suffers? Who profits from this? Who benefits? Well, for-profit healthcare certainly is the beneficiary. Now, remember at the outset that it said it was being used or proposed to being used at Fawcett Memorial Hospital. Well, according to records that I've actually looked at, that Fawcett Memorial Hospital is actually owned by HCA, which is the Hospital Corporations of America. So with that being said, I said, do they have an ownership structure because it's Hospital Corporations of America? Let's take a look, because they do. So let's take a look at that, because you're going to say, yep, I knew it. So let's take a look there. So here we go. Hospital Corporations of America. It says Hospital Corporations, Inc. specializes in owning and operating healthcare facilities. The group offers hospital services, ambulatory care and emergency care services, acute care services, surgical services, imaging and diagnostic services, laboratory services, etc. At the end of 2023, the group operated 186 hospitals. 186 hospitals, including 178 general hospitals, 6 psychiatric hospitals, and 2 rehabilitation hospitals located in the United States and the United Kingdom, as well as 124 surgery centers and 24 endoscopy centers in the United States. They have 265,000 employees. Well, let's take a look at the numbers, okay? So let's look at the management, okay? I want to take a look at the management here. I'm sorry. Let's take a look at the shareholders. Well, what do you know? What do you know? Look at this. So besides Hercules Holding, which has 27.21% of the shares, then the next one is Vanguard. So Vanguard, of course, we know that company. It is notorious nowadays. Owns just over 6% of the shares of HCA. And then you have BlackRock that owns just over 4%, and then Sanders, and then State Street, which is another famous name that we know of that owns. So really, it's these hedge fund and private equity firms that are literally owning our medical care facilities. So of course, they're going to want to use AI because they need to reduce costs, right? They're trying to reduce costs, but the thing is, it's like, at what cost to the patients? At what cost to people like you and me? Are these hospitals willing to use AI? And the thing is like, is AI really going to be as good of a caretaker for us when it comes to patient care as a human being that's a nurse? And I foresee, a bad omen when it comes to this. So absolutely. Another thing I wanted to take a look at is we're going to go up, right? I want to go into the leadership structure, and I want you guys to see something. So look at the chief executive officer. The chief executive officer is Samuel Hazen. Samuel Hazen. And you know what? I'm going to be real with you. I was curious as to who Samuel Hazen is. Well, apparently he's CEO of Hospital Corporations of America. But let's get into his compensation to see who Samuel Hazen is. Well, here's Samuel Hazen out of salary.com, right? So it says here, as Chief Executive Officer at HCA Healthcare, Inc., Samuel N. Hazen made $21,315,984 in total compensation. Of this total, $1.5 million was received as salary. $5 million, just over $5 million, was received as bonus. $7.2 million was received in stock options, and $6.9 million was awarded as stock. And over $570,000 came from other types of compensation. This information is according to proxy statements filed for the 2023 fiscal year. And so if you look at this guy is rolling in dough. So of course, it behooves him to try to cut costs as much as possible. And remember, as we all talk about, that CEOs have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. So he has a fiduciary responsibility to companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, right? And as well as Hercules Holding. And so because he has this fiduciary responsibility to them, then whose priorities matter more? Well, of course, the priorities for Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and Hercules Holding matter more to him than it would to you and me, who may need medical help. Now, this is why they're trying to use AI. It's not because they actually want better patient care. It's because, well, they're trying to save more money so they can make more money. It's never about you. It's never about the worker. It's never about the health of the worker. It's never about the health of the citizen. It's about the health of the company. That comes first. And really, if you think about it, seems like that's the only thing that they are actually focused on. So let's go into what the nurses are demanding. I want to get into that too, because the nurses, it is a little bit more detailed here that I want to get into as far as the nurses as well. So we're going to get into this from the union itself. So this is from National Nurses United. So we're going to get into this and get into the meat and potatoes. So it says nurses marching nationwide in support of safe staffing, patient protections against AI. So it says thousands of registered nurse members of National Nurses United will hold actions, including marches, protests, and rallies on Thursday, January 16th, to demand hospital industry ensure safe staffing levels and patient safeguards amidst the rapid introduction of artificial intelligence technologies. More than 100,000 NNU members are entering contract negotiations with their employers, including multi-billion-dollar healthcare organizations such as UC Health and Dignity Health. In negotiation, nurses plan to confront industry decisions that undermine patients' health and well-being and fail to address chronic registered nurse recruitment and retention issues in favor of increasing profits. So remember what I said here. This is about the workers versus the capitalists, the workers versus the corporate dictators. See, this is exactly what they're trying to do. This is a wrestle that they have, and this is part of capitalism. It's always the worker trying to get as much as they can while not having to do as much work versus the capitalist, the owner of the means of production, trying to get the worker to do as much while paying them as little as possible. So this is part of that battle, that dichotomy. Says today, nurses across the country are taking to the streets to let our communities know that in 2025, as in all years past, we are committed to providing the highest quality of care for every patient. That's from Nancy Higgins, the president of NNU. We will fight fearlessly against the profit-driven hospital industry, which seeks to undermine nursing care through unconscionable understaffing and reckless automation. Of course, it says National Nurses United is the largest and fastest growing union in the United States with nearly 225,000 members nationwide. The nationwide protests, including marches in Washington, D.C., El Paso, Texas, and across California, will highlight broad support among nurses for solutions that prioritize quality patient care over profits. Says nurses say solutions such as mandated nurse-to-patient ratios and guaranteed workplace violence prevention plans will help address the hospital staffing crisis by returning nurses to the bedside. A new detailed analysis from NNU using the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Council of State Boards of Nursing shows nationwide there are more than 1 million registered nurses with active licenses who are choosing not to work at the bedside because of the hospital industry's unsafe working conditions. And here's the thing, why are the working conditions unsafe? Well, because a lot of times what ends up doing is cutting costs. So then they don't enforce these safe working conditions, because enforcing those safe working conditions means you have to spend more. Well, if they are trying to cut expenses and cut costs so that the shareholders get more, well, then who gets left holding the shit on the stick? It's the nurses, it's the staff. And so that's exactly what happens. That's what happens within the capitalist system, because they have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, not to a responsibility to anybody else outside of that. It says patient advocacy is at the core of what we do as nurses. That's why we're demanding safe staffing and protections against untested technologies such as AI. We see the harm that these cost-cutting schemes cost our patients on a daily basis. And it says in 2024, they released a guiding principle for AI implementation that promotes quality patient care safely and equity. Based on Member reports around the country, NUNU has shared its deep concerns with current implementation of AI with hospital employers, policy regulators, and the public. In fact, a widely circulated 2024 NNU survey of more than 2,300 registered nurses and members of NNU found that 60% of respondents disagree with the statement, "I trust my employer will implement AI with patient safety as the first priority." The same survey found nurses repeatedly reported that their own assessments of patients did not match the assessment from AI technology deployed in their facilities. For decades prior to the introduction of AI technology in hospital settings, NNU nurses have fought back against employer efforts to deploy unproven technology and to de-skill, speed up, and replace their work. Through collective action and collective bargaining agreements, they have won technology protections designed to safeguard patients and the nursing profession, with the latest example across HCA facilities. Remember what I talked about? HCA facilities. So that's something that, a lot of us have been talking about, right? We just talked about that. And who's part of the ownership structure of HCA? The Hospital Corporations of America is Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. So really it's these financial institutions that are basically talking about our health and demanding what our health should and shouldn't be, when in reality it should be the healthcare professionals that are really the ones that should be spearheading and demanding what our healthcare should be. So the point is that nursing is a human to human profession. Intuition, instincts, personal contact, behavioral recognition, the human touch, all these things are necessary and are, more to care for patients than AI isn't capable of doing. The profiteering of corporations like the HCA and private equity firms will ensure that our health gets just worse by only doing minimal care while extracting huge profits from their shareholders. This is exactly why I say we need to go beyond demanding single-payer healthcare system. Just overseeing who pays isn't enough when it comes to hospitals who are still going to just charge and make obscene profits off of our bodies. We need a full nationalization of our healthcare systems. Hospitals, clinics, dialysis centers, infusion centers, rehab centers, imaging centers, medical device manufacturers, long-term care facilities, hospice care, and even gyms. Our healthcare should not be for sale if we are to ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That can only come through healthcare being an absolute right, not a relative one. Well, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You guys have been great. Let's get into the comments in the chat, and then we will move on to our next segment. We got some comments in the Rumble. All right. Ooh. All right, let me share the screen. Thank you so much. Hens T says snow in New Orleans too. So they closed their bridges over the river and the lake. Hens T asks, will the AI data is based or come from insurance companies? So apparently it is trying to be implemented through the hospital itself, which is why I talk about, that's why I say we need to go beyond single payer healthcare. We need to go to a healthcare system that is nationalized, because they're going to charge you up the wazoo, when it comes to the, government. They're going to charge the government like crazy, just in order to make as much money as possible. So it's not going to be that much different than the military industrial complex that charges the government, right? And we're paying exorbitant prices just for, our military. We don't have to do that. We can have it all, nationalized, and it will be a whole lot cheaper, but it'll still remain high quality. So yeah. All right, so let's go into the Rockfin. Let me check the Rockfin. Okay, looks like we're good on the Rockfin. And let's check in here. Okay. Hen's Teeth asks, will the data AI is based on come from insurance company? Oh, yeah. I already answered that. Thank you very much. Jacqueline says, prime example of someone earning way more than they actually are worth. Why don't we replace CEOs with AI? After all, CEOs is really surplus to requirement. I agree. That is one job that I'm actually okay with replacing with AI, is the CEOs. If we can do that, I'm fine with it. Cool. Let's let it happen that way, right? Because the thing is, if workers go away, then the company suffers. But if a CEO goes away, the company still can run. And it's really just analytics. Bad Wolf says the sacred private contractor. Unfortunately, yeah. Edward says that corporations are taking over public services offered by the government with the politicians' blessing. This means that the corporations will get rid of public workers who had a defined pension. Yeah, this is a way to really take that money away, because the corporations really want that pension money, right? That's what they really want. They don't want you to have it. They want to have it for themselves, Bad Wolf says the nurse had to do the assessment and make the decision. AI can absolutely not do that. Trust me, I'm medical. Yeah, this is why, there's so many things. Like a nurse can look at you, and especially if they get to know you, it's like, wait, that person is not behaving normally. There's something wrong. Right? AI won't be able to determine that. Right? It can even, even in behavioral patterns. And Babel says that won't be minimal care. It will be disastrous and deadly care. Yeah. Thank you very much for your input on that. Let me see. Edward says, I do not want AI getting involved in healthcare. Person to person is the best way to deal with healthcare. You save jobs and not cut costs for medical needs. Yep. Absolutely. CEB says, how can we plan away for Medicare for all without buzzwords? You can do it for the most part without buzzwords. It's kind of tough. But you can, because the right's pretty much going to say, well, that's socialized healthcare. And the thing is, it's like, people were like, oh my God, that's socialism. It's not socialism. Socialism is workers, really the ownership of production, really, from workers. The means of production, that is. When it comes to single payer healthcare, and like I said, I want to move beyond. I say single payer healthcare is in the right direction. But if you wanted to implement Medicare for all without the buzzwords, you would just have to talk about, giving healthcare to everybody, right? And then, people, and then just debunk what a lot of people say. Because a lot of people say, well, you want these, doctors and nurses to work for free. And it's like, no, then you ask the question, does the postal workers work for free? Do the people who work in Social Security office, do they work for free? Do the people who work in our parks, in our national parks, do they work for free? Like, just start asking questions like, do they all work for free? And it's like, no. Well, of course, no, the doctors and nurses won't work for free, right? And then do our soldiers work for free? Hell no. And so then, you let them know that no, that these doctors and nurses should be handsomely compensated for the work that they do. But at the same time, Instead of it getting paid through a corporation, they're getting paid through our tax dollars. That's that's the difference, and they will just be government employees instead of a corporate employee. But this also involves taking money out of politics. Because a lot of people are going to say, you want government running healthcare? And I'm like, well, corporations are doing a bang up job right now, aren't they? When people start complaining about healthcare, you got to remind them that it's corporations that are running our healthcare system already. So they know what corporate healthcare feels like, but they've never had actual government run. And I'm not talking about healthcare like Medicare. Medicare is really just the government acting as an insurer for healthcare. They're not the healthcare provider. See what I mean? But it's all about semantics and letting people know what's what. Roger says, Bad Wolf, if we can't then stationalize or municipalize it. Yep. Yeah. All right. So let's go into the next. Let's go into the next one. So on to the next one. On to the next one. All right, folks, let's get into this. Day one reaction. So we're going to get into this. And this is going to be a hefty segment. So be prepared. We got a lot to get into. So I cannot wait. So we're going to start right now. So yesterday was the inauguration of Donald Trump. Once again, is part 2 of his presidency again into the White House. And a lot has happened over the last 24 hours. So we're going to just take a look. We're going to get into it. And yeah, let's start. So to make sure that I have my timestamps correct. And let's go. I hate when it does that. Okay. Oop. Sorry, I have it on 2 times speed. I can only stand him for so long.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson.
All right, so we see that he has just been sworn in. So let's go into this first part right here. So he starts coming in hot.
We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina been treated so badly. And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn. From weeks ago, without even a token of defense, they're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them.
So, as we can see from here, it looks like Donald Trump came in hot. And basically, he's taking shots at Biden and Harris for their failures of their administration while they're sitting right behind him. I mean, and now look, as regards to the healthcare aspect, this is because of profit seeking from corporations. So I'd say that unless Trump is willing to give an NHS style system, I don't want to hear anything from him. Luigi allegedly did what he did because of this purposefully exploitative healthcare system. So I have no faith that Trump will change any of that. In regards to education, children and young people, they would have more pride in their country if they were treated well by securing their material needs like housing, good schools that aren't subject to the different quality depending on your zip code, top health care that helps us all in access to healthy food, clean water, and healthy environment for us to have in the future. But will he push for that? I don't know. But let's go on to our next point. So,
people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
okay, so one thing is absolutely abundantly clear. Trump received a higher percentage of the Black vote than his predecessors in years past. So then many Black Americans have put their faith in him. Let's be honest about it. Though, given his history of racism, I feel that faith is misplaced, just as it is in Black Americans who voted for Biden. Harris also has a shoddy history with how she treated Black people in this country as well. So I think Trump wouldn't have liked Dr. King if he was still alive. Dr. King had a 75% disapproval rating right before he died. So the praise to Black people, especially the people like Dr. King, rings hollow for me. But that's pretty much all I have to say there. So let's go to our next part. So
historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
So one of these things I just have to say is, so sending the U.S. troops to the border is something that I didn't know that a president could do, but this shows that Biden could have done so much more for us if he just, if he wasn't just tasked to be a seat warmer, right, and maintain the status quo for 4 years. This national emergency at the border is a self-inflicting wound. To be honest with you, I mean, with the destabilization of countries in Central and South America, along with crippling sanctions and devastating embargoes and sanctions, this has led to more people fleeing their countries to seek refuge here. So to me, this is just more of a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, but let's continue and finish this.
And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my...
All right, so, as far as Trump is concerned, my thing is just like, if you really wanted to fix the border, then you would just need to end the embargoes, end the crippling sanctions, like I said before, and the thing is, like, they don't have any interest in that. So the thing that's actually causing, people to flee to the border is the one thing you don't want to fix, but you just want to stop them when they get to the border, even though you're, still causing it. Like, it's like trying to fix a leaky pipe without shutting the water valve off. How do you expect to actually fix the leaking pipe if you don't shut off the water valve? Well, you got to shut off the water valve first. And the problem is that they're not willing to do that, right? Because they want the leaks to happen, because it creates a problem in order for them to say, see, I fixed it. But they don't really actually want to fix it. Biden doesn't want to fix it, and Trump really doesn't want to fix it, because if they actually wanted to fix it, then he know exactly what he would need to do. You could do things like ending the drug war would actually end or take the power away from the cartels. That's not what Trump is about, right? Trump is a con man, just like Biden's a con man. I just wish more people actually saw through it. So let's continue to the next point.
Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote.
All right. So as far as Trump is proposing here, I will say this, that Trump is really just showing us what Biden and Harris could have done, but they refused to do it. They knew full well what the powers that the presidency had, and they knew exactly what they were capable of, but they neglected to do it for the sake of the corporations. And now Trump is making them look like fools. The whole drill, baby, drill will actually be terrible for the environment, especially environmental issues that, like, for instance, climate change. And you can talk about how, oh my God, it's actually going to snow in North Florida. And how is that climate change? The thing is that it's drastic when it comes to either one extreme or the other. So we have furthering extremes in our weather conditions. But here's the thing, right? Trump will escalate climate change even more by escalating it further by pushing more for the use of fossil fuels. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of workers that are in fossil fuel companies that they're going to hear the people wanting to transition away, and they're going to think, oh, well, you want to take my job away. But this was really the point that we were, demanding, is that you do what we call a just transition, so that you're able to give people who are in fossil fuel industries a job in renewable energy. Or also in regards to training, you can also do that, and then give them good paying jobs, free training, and you transition to as we transition to renewable resources. So also the Green New Deal would have put millions of workers to work under a federal jobs guarantee. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about. Right. But that part is key when it comes to a Green New Deal. Got to remember that the original Green New Deal came from the Green Party. The Green New Deal that was somewhat implemented, wasn't really implemented, but was proposed really by the Democratic Party, was really just a very deeply watered down version of the Green New Deal. So when it comes to that, we ain't even seen a real Green New Deal. Right. And a real Green New Deal would actually be a job boom to this country. So that's a whole nother thing. And, Now, the electric vehicle mandate, in regards to that, that was an individualistic solution to a systemic problem. First of all, most of us can't even afford an electric vehicle. I know for sure as hell I can't even afford an electric vehicle. Hell, I can't afford. Can I even afford a bicycle? You know, so a lot of us couldn't afford it because it was way too expensive. How many people are actually trying to get Elon's Cybertruck? I know sure as hell I am not trying to get Elon's Cybertruck. Plus, who knows? It may self-drive me into a brick wall and, you know, take me out. You never know. But yeah, the better option will be to have, you know, mass public transit, and it will be, you know, implemented by a mass infrastructure project that will make travel better and easier for everybody while curbing climate change. This will save Americans money on things like fuel, insurance, maintenance, and car payments. So I think that would be the better option. But of course, Trump is not going to go that route. So let me go to the next portion. Yep, right here.
I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency.
Okay, so this part, you know, the whole Department of Government Efficiency is hilarious to me. But, you know, tariffs are just a type of tax, right? Dr. Richard Wolff has actually explained this many times before. Tariffs are a type of tax that's placed on foreign companies in order to push citizens to buy American. The problem is that these companies will just put the cost onto the customer, and many of our products are made in other countries like China. Even then, part of the products are even made in other countries like Mexico. So the parts, you know, you could get a part that's made in a car, but then the car price goes up because the part's made in Mexico, and then he must have put tariffs on Mexican products. So even though it's technically made in America, the parts are made in a different country. So therefore, you're still going to end up paying more. So look, here's the thing, you know, tariffs would increase the cost to companies, and the companies would pass those costs on to people like you and me. So in the end, we're still going to get shafted no matter what. And by the way, those tariffs have continued to exist under Biden. So the tariffs started under Trump, they continued under Biden, and now they're going to continue under Trump. So tariffs have already been in place. That's something a lot of people aren't talking about. So let's continue.
After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities.
All right. So this is a big issue, the free speech issue. So I just want to harp on this really quick. So the free speech issue is big because of what happened, for instance, to groups like the Uhuru Three, right? Think about Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Petty Hess, and Jesse Neville. Think about what happened to people like Julian Assange, Stephen Dotzinger, people who are been silenced on multiple platforms. Also think about the TikTok issue, right? That's essentially a free speech issue. But remember that it was Trump who initially went after TikTok early on. So now he's basically playing Captain Save free speech, right? Even though he placed it in harm's way. Also, you know, in regards to free speech, right? If he really wants to curb free speech, I am all for that. That's actually a very good thing. But what about the students in the college campuses that were targeted because they dared use their free speech against genocide? Are you going to be, you know, allowing for free speech against the genocide that has continued? I think that's a worthy cause. Or what about the woman named Breonna Boston, who said on the phone to her insurance company, deny, defend, depose? Will she be freed and charges be dropped? I'm just asking, because if we're going to talk about free speech, right? Are we going to have, you know, just like there was a Twitter files, are we going to have a YouTube files for those of us who may be throttled because of, you know, any particular ideology that's further left than Bernie Sanders? We're going to talk about free speech. Let's talk about free speech, right? Because the thing is that, like I said to Kit earlier today, I don't have faith that Donald Trump will actually implement free speech. It will just be freer speech for people who are on the right, versus when Joe Biden was president, it was freer speech for people who are liberal. You notice I didn't say left. I said liberal, right? And so will he put his money where his mouth is? I don't know, but I would like for him to, but I don't have faith in that. So, well, let's continue.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
So this is a kind of a social red meat, but you know, let's be real. Race and gender are actually social constructs because these are still marginalized groups. These people still exist. Humans have come in a variety since our inception. So denying their existence by having a colorblind society won't do a damn thing unless you address the disparities and give equity to those who have been harmed. Also, if our society were merit-based, then Black Americans would own this country. Of course, after settlers stole the land from the Native Americans. And if it's all based on merit, Barron Trump wouldn't inherit a damn thing from his father and sure work for it all himself. But we know Donnie's not going to do that. If we're all about merit-based society, then why not pay freedmen from what we're owed in reparations? Donald should put his money where his mouth is. Also, the whole two genders thing is wild because male and female are sexes. Man and woman are genders. Gender is a social construct. But this is just culture war baiting to keep the workers divided. That's basically what it is. It does, what does a person with stubble and a dress have to do with me not being able to pay my rent or afford food? Targeting a small portion of the population is idiotic and foolish. But we all knew this was coming, didn't we?
This state any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay.
All right, so this about the pandemic. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because you got to be very careful what you say about it on here. But the pandemic ruled out was handled very poorly. And we need to restore faith in our healthcare system by taking the profits out of it entirely. That's all I'm going to say. All right.
Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families.
Oh boy. All right. So as far as military is concerned, if he really wanted to build why are we concerned with building up a military when we already spend more than the next 10 countries combined? What about the proxy wars in Yemen and Ukraine? We're literally also fighting a proxy war in Haiti by using Kenyan soldiers to fight against gangs as well. What about private militias like Blackwater? Remember Blackwater? That was the company that was owned by Eric Prince, and Eric Prince is the brother of Betsy DeVos, who was the former education secretary under Trump. Are we going to stop using them to destabilize countries around the world to get control of their resources and replace their heads of state with puppets for U.S. corporate control? In regards to hostages were being released over the weekend, which I am very happy about. And I celebrate with the Palestinians because the hostages, it was a harrowing time for them. And even a lot of the hostages were minors, children. And so I'm glad to see them back with their families. And the Palestinians have been celebrating, which is good. And just to let you guys know, that's something that Biden could have enforced a year ago. He let this genocide go on for an entire year. But make no mistake, it was the Palestinian activists who made this happen. They pushed the world into and moved people. If they never did, then Trump would allow this carnage to continue. By the way, the ceasefire was short-lived because some Palestinians were actually murdered yesterday, right after the inauguration. So there's so much for that.
Rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs.
Oh my God. Just knock me out already. So changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, this is stupid. Changing the name from Mount Denali back to McKinley as a slap in the face to the Koyukon people of Alaska. They're an indigenous native people who named that mountain before settlers ever came to this lands. So this shows how Trump feels about Native Americans. All right. How much more do we have on this thing? All right. Let's continue.
Many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made. And Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form. And that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal. And we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Gosh. All right. So for this point, Panama has the right to do what's on their land, whatever they choose. Who are we to force Panama to how to, use their own canal? If we actually are about the sovereignty and self-determination of other nations, then this is a drastic heel turn if I've ever seen one. Also, in regards to China, if China develop a good relationship with Panama, then that's our own fault for not keeping a good relationship with them. But in the end, when it comes to Panama, it's still their land. And also, let me ask you, how many treaties have the United States broken? Okay. Let's go. Finish up.
our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our...
Whoa! Wait. Say that again, Donnie.
Nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory.
Expands our territory. That sounds like imperialism to me. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, huh? My gosh.
Builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Oh, geez, Louise. This guy. Manifest destiny? How did that work out for the global south again? We can't even take care of our own planet, and you're talking about going to Mars? Man, this is the best money a president can buy. Elon spent good money on this man. Goodness gracious. My goodness. Well, that's the gist of all the things that Donald Trump has been proposing. And so, I definitely have my thoughts on many of those things that you guys just saw. But since then, a lot of things have taken place. And so some of the things that have taken place are pretty drastic. Donald Trump has hit the ground running. And I just want to share that as well in regards to what he has implemented so far. I want to share this first. We're going to go into this because migrants at the border are already feeling the pain from Trump presidency as of him assuming the oath of office yesterday afternoon. So let's get into this. So this is from Pop Crave. It says migrants and Ciudad Juarez react to CPB 1 being shut down by Donald Trump minutes before their appointments. So here it is. So as we can see here, there are many people who have, been trying to seek refuge within the country. And like I said before, he is trying to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound by just closing down the border, by just deporting a whole bunch of people who are undocumented, when in reality, that's not really going to fix our issue, right? I think it was Dr. Richard Wolff when he spoke to Sabs a few weeks ago, when he said that, yeah, go ahead and deport all the people all you want. But the thing is, it's like when it comes to these essential industries that they're a part of, are they going to be able to employ Americans to go into these industries? And if they do, then a lot of these companies are, for-profit corporations. So then, of course, they're going to jack up their prices if Americans are demanding top dollar, which I'm saying that we should not be exploiting anybody, period. And so this is the whole reason for having undocumented immigrants coming into the country in the first place, because they want that exploitative labor. But the thing is that this is one of the issues, is that now you have people who are fleeing their countries because of what the United States has been doing, especially in regards to the destabilization of their countries. And now they're fleeing here. And now they're basically being put in limbo because they can't come in, or there's a lot of people who are now being deported. So you see people now that are crying at the border and people saying, well, you guys should have came in legally. And I'm like, well, of course, that, you know, part of that is also a financial thing, right? Because you destabilize their countries and you making them into a poorer country because they're not able to build themselves up. So now when they flee here because they're too poor and they'd rather be behind the barrel of a gun instead of being in front of a barrel of a gun, then you say, well, you guys can't come here anyway, even though they're trying to flee. And no doubt, a lot of these people, they actually traversed thousands of miles just to be able to survive, some of them with their kids in tow, because it's actually more safer for them to be here and hated than to be in their home country and be subject to violence that really was, you know, helped caused by, you know, U.S. foreign policy. So let me go to this as well, because this has also been happening. Some of the citizens have been noticing an uptick in ICE raids. So let me share this as well. So it's already starting. So let's get into this.
What I just saw right now. With my own two eyes, I feel like what I just saw right now. With my own two eyes, I feel like I think I just saw ICE pull up on immigrants and they shoved them into a van in broad daylight. My wife told me that ICE was here in Northern California, that they were you know, in San Jose. They were just in broad daylight on Story Road, you know, shoving people into vans. I had somebody in my car that I think she might have been undocumented, and she had her child with her. It was a pretty close encounter, to be honest. Like whoever the person was orchestrating this, they looked into my eyes, and I was driving. They said, "Oh, move on past." I was being nosy, and I looked into the van, and I'm like, there's a lot of Hispanic people in there, like, and they were all in handcuffs, and they looked like innocent. I mean, I don't know what's going on, so, and I don't think it was a police van. I'm thinking it is immigration. I'm thinking it is ICE, but I could be wrong. It could be just me speculating. But regardless, just try to keep your loved ones, your friends, your family safe, because, you know, it's happening.
You guys, I'm not even gonna lie. These raids happening in Bakersfield are weighing super, super heavy on me today. And unfortunately, I have experienced deportation firsthand when my parents were deported when I was, I think, 12 and 13 or 13 and 14. I don't even remember. It's been so long. And that was the hardest thing I had ever gone through in my entire life. Until this day, when I think about that little girl having to say goodbye to both of her parents, it's absolutely heartbreaking.
It's 4 a.m. I can't sleep. For the last 6 hours, I have been looking at videos to make sure I can keep my family knowledgeable enough so that they know what to say if it happens.
I just want to say this: when it comes to undocumented immigrants coming into the country, really, you know, undocumented immigrants coming to our borders is really just chickens coming home to roost, because this is the problem of the greed of corporations. That's ultimately what it's about. And so, you know, if you're somebody that has an issue with undocumented immigrants coming here, which I know there's going to be some people who have, you know, that thought, who are, you know, watching. Whose fault is it? Is it the fault of the people coming across the border, or is it the fault of people who actually destabilize their countries, who have placed sanctions and embargoes, who have kept the drug war coming up? By the way, who was selling drugs in our neighborhood by putting crack in our neighborhoods? Was it them, or was it the CIA? Right? So ultimately, you know, who do we have to blame really for all this, right? That's why I say there's two sets of victims. There's us, and then there's the undocumented immigrants that are coming across the border, because they're also victims of U.S. imperialism as well. You know, and this just makes me sad, because they shouldn't have to. Number one, they shouldn't have to flee to come here in the first place. They shouldn't have to resort to being undocumented. Number two, when it comes to people being here like this, especially if they came here as a DACA recipient, then it's not their fault, that they were brought here. And unfortunately, this is the home that they know. And so it's almost like I have a feeling like what's done is done. They've been citizens and they might as well just be citizens. You know what I'm saying? We could curb this by ending, the destabilization and the sanctions that we're doing in these other countries. But let me continue.
If it happens.
A lot of people don't like coming on social crying because a lot of the time it's a oh brother moment, and I get it, but very up to here with immigration right now, and especially as a DACA recipient, it's just having to jump over. Sorry, here we go again.
Mi hijo estaba trabajando en una fábrica de hacer gabinetes. Yo quiero que por favor, si Carlos Espina me puede ayudar, ayuden a etiquetar a Carlos Eduardo Espina, por favor.
But is anybody else seeing these videos of these families who are being affected by these ICE raids? And as a child, not having your parent come home.
So this is what's been happening over the last few hours. This is an unnecessary thing that shouldn't have happened. But because of the greed of corporations wanting to exploit people, this is what happens. And then you have an uptick of people who want the undocumented immigrants gone, because of course the people who want them gone, I can't necessarily fault them for wanting it, because of course the exploitation is causing the depression of wages. And so, but at the same time, somebody's going to get exploited. In the capitalist system, somebody is going to. Anywho, I don't want to get on this tangent. So I also want to share this as well. So Trump also has paused foreign development aid for 90 days. So it says Trump pauses U.S. foreign development aid for 90 days pending review. It says U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday ordered a 90-day pause in foreign development assistance pending assessments of efficiencies and consistency with his foreign policy. All departments and agency heads with responsibility for United States foreign development assistance programs shall immediately pause new obligations and disbursements of development assistance funds, read the executive order signed by Trump just hours after he took office for a second term. Says it was not immediately clear how broad the order was and what programs, countries, non-governmental organizations, and international organizations would be affected by the move. It was also unclear what funding could be cut, given the U.S. Congress sets the federal U.S. government budget. The executive order echoes a return to the approach Trump took during his first term in office between 2017 and 2021. So let's continue here. It says he first came to power proposing to cut to about a third of U.S. diplomacy and aid budgets, which includes steep reductions in funding UN peacekeeping and international organizations, but Congress pushed back. So, then at the annual gathering of world leaders, United Nations 2018, Trump complained that the U.S. was the largest foreign aid donor, but few gave anything to us. That's why we're taking a hard look at U.S. foreign assistance. Moving forward, we will only going to give foreign aid to those who respect us and frankly are our friends. So this is basically what is happening with Trump hitting the ground running. There's another point that I want to share here, talking about Trump's day one executive orders. I want to get into that as well. This is actually an article out of the Associated Press. So let's get into this right here. All right. So what are his priorities? So first, one of the things he did was pardon the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. So he pardoned about 1,500 people convicted of criminally charged by the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol as Congress convened to certify Biden's 2020 victory over Trump. So that's one of the things he did. He said in a made-for-TV display at Capital One Arena on Monday evening, Trump signed a largely symbolic memorandum that he described as directing every federal agency to combat consumer inflation by repealing Biden actions and adding his own orders. Trump is easing regulatory burdens on oil and natural gas production, something he promises will bring down the cost of all consumer goods. Trump is specifically targeting Alaska for expanded fossil fuel production. So this is actually going to be something that is going to be, hard, especially for the indigenous population, because of course they were already upset about the Willow Project being, approved by Joe Biden. So Donald Trump being part of this, expansion of oil drilling and fossil fuel production, this is going to make it a much harder and uphill battle for the indigenous water protectors and land protectors that are trying to preserve the environment. It says on trade, the president said he expects to impose a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico starting February 1st, but declined to flesh out his plans for taxing Chinese imports. Here's the thing, like I said, a tariff is just a type of tax that's placed on, the consumer. So of course they're going to pass that tax, that cost on to people like you. And there's a lot of things that are also produced in Mexico. For instance, car parts. A lot of car parts are actually produced in Mexico. So next time you need a part for a car, if it's a lot significantly higher, well, you're going to have Trump to thank for that too. And the thing is like a lot of these tariffs are already in place under Biden. So really, it's just a carryover from the Biden administration. So you're starting to see the similarities between Trump and Biden. The lines are becoming more and more blurred, as we can see here. But let's continue here. It says Trump also signed an order intended to pause Congress's TikTok ban for 75 days, a period in which the president says he will seek a U.S. buyer and a deal that could protect national security interests while leaving the popular social media platform open to Americans. So, of course, like I said earlier, this is basically just Donald Trump setting the fire like he did in order to have the TikTok ban years ago. And then he set the fire. Then he told Joe Biden, hey, that house is, that's burning. It should be demolished. So then Joe Biden takes the gasoline, puts it further on the fire, causing that fire to burn. And then what does Donald Trump do? He puts on, a fireman's hat and grabs a water hose and then puts out the fire and says, see, I actually put the fire out. And then everybody's clapping for him, saying, yeah, you put the fire out, when in reality, let's be honest, truth be told, Donald Trump was the one who started the fire in the first place, purposefully. And so this just goes to show the person who's like Donald Trump. And so let's continue in this as well. America First, it says, as he did during his first administration, Trump is pulling the U.S. out of the World Health Organization. He also ordered comprehensive review of U.S. foreign aid spending. Both moves fit into his more isolationist America First approach to international affairs. In more symbolic moves, Trump planned to sign an order renaming the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf America, and then Mount McKinley from Mount Denali, of course, that is silly to me, but it's something that he wants to do. It said Trump signed an order that flags must be at full height at every future inauguration day. The order came because former President Jimmy Carter's death had prompted flags to be at half staff. Trump demanded that they be moved up Monday. Another Trump order calls for promoting beautiful federal civic architecture. Immigration and national security. Trump reversed several immigration orders from Biden's presidency, including one that narrowed deportation priorities to people who commit serious crimes, are deemed national security threats, or who stop at the border. It returns the government to Trump's first term policy that everyone in the country illegally is a priority for deportation. The president declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border as he plans to send U.S. troops to help support immigration agents to restrict refugees and asylum. Trump is trying to end birthright citizenship. It is unclear, though, whether his order will survive inevitable legal challenges since birthright citizenship is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. He temporarily suspended the U.S. refugee admission program, pending a review to assess the program's public safety and national security implications. So, yeah. So meanwhile, and of course, we just talked about the CBP One app, and he just ended that. It says the president revoked any active security clearances from a long list he perceived as enemies, including from former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, Leon Panetta, and former CIA Defense Secretary and his own former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. This part is interesting. He is going to be, he's revoking security clearance for John Bolton. That is hilarious. So, Walrus ain't getting, past him again. So, John Bolton was a neocon, boy. Let me tell you, John Bolton was a bastard. So I find that kind of funny. Of course, climate and energy, he's going to be drilling, crazy. And then overhaul, government bureaucracy, the Department of Government Efficiency, and then basically rolling back DEI and transgender rights as well. And so, of course, this is all the things that he's doing on day one. Now, some things I gotta say. Just to conclude with this is I think it's safe to say that the next 4 years is going to be rough for many people. What some aren't expecting is that it's going to be rough on the people who support Trump as well. His devotion to the corporations and power brokers who screw over workers, when that happens, we have to be there to show them that a better system is possible. Like Biden, Trump will fool the people, and then more Americans will be in a worse place. But this means it is now the time to build class consciousness. No amount of just voting is going to save us. No amount of wishing. We have to get out there and do the work and organize in our communities. This is how we survive and help our neighbors. Be prepared. Go ahead and like the stream. Thank you very much. I went a little over on that one, but I think we're okay. All right, so let's go into the Rockfin chat. And then we'll get into the patron shout out. And then we will finish it all. Okay. All right, so actually, let me go into Rumble first. So I always forget Rumble, and I don't want to forget. I will remember you. Okay. Sorry. Some say love, it is a river. See, now I'm going to get into my Napoleon Dynamite. Remember when they sang that song on Family Guy? They all were inside the car and they started singing that song. It was hilarious. Anyway, they did good, by the way. So thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, he says, so I have a CBI plan to cover everything private equity. Just make them unconstitutional from operating in your state. Also, they must hand over ownership to their workers or the government. If to the government, then the workers feel that the government isn't doing things right, they'll have the option of doing kind of like when you vote on whether or not to recognize a union allowing workers to purchase from the government. You tell them, well, government runs Medicare and Medicaid. Thank you for this tip. When it comes to clean energy independency, while protecting the environment and bringing back manufacturing jobs, I wish someone would propose to Trump worker co-ops for manufacturing community cooperative. And when it comes to making things in regards to manufacturing hemp products, while at the same time introduced to Trump using hemp in nuclear power plants that are producer and community co-ops as both. Being clean energy and independent energy sources plus just as reliable as oil. Nuclear has 93% energy output as opposed to solar and wind 25 to 35%. Not as reliable as nuclear, and you can reuse the waste that comes from nuclear being a clean energy and independent energy resource. Plus, just as reliable as oil, but in addition, introduce thorium reactors better than uranium. If you have time, Google thorium versus uranium and compare the two, JB. So I don't necessarily have time, but I have had conversations with a comrade about thorium versus uranium, about thorium being significantly safer than uranium. And me personally, I don't know enough, but I am willing to have that conversation of people who are against nuclear versus people who are for nuclear. And by nuclear, I mean, number one, the brand new reactors that are much more safer. Number two, instead of using uranium, we're using thorium. But also cost is definitely a factor when it comes to things like this. And so I don't know if that would be feasible for us. However, I am willing to have that conversation with other different people who are, environmentally conscious. But yes, I can see that, especially in using more electricity and doing mass transit, right? Buses, trains, trams, and what have you. I would love to see us have, better energy output in that way while still pushing for renewable resources. And then also the hemp thing, of course. And of course, I'll be having on Joey Peltier on next week. So we're going to have that conversation. I'm sure that part is going to come up in conversation too. But yes, the whole using of hemp, in batteries and graphite, those are definitely worthy causes to pursue too. So yeah, thanks for that, Roger. And then this one, thank you very much, says Joe Biden did this by not cutting it off Friday, as Phil will explain 6 minutes. So thank you very much. I don't know if I have time for this one. I'm gonna have to watch this later because I'm on the schedule right now. I'm trying to be responsible, but it says this is from Phil Scott. Says Biden cruelty, migrants weep after CBP1 app shut down and canceled when Trump took office. Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's like this shouldn't have happened in the first place, but this is what happens when you let corporations own our government. Let's go into the rest of the chat here. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say. James Stark says, we have always had hate speech in the USA. What's called hate speech by the government is criticism of the government and imperial capitalism. Yeah. And a lot of times, they say that we're for free speech, but it's until we start to critique capitalism. And next thing you know, the McCarthyites start coming through, right? And then they want to censor our speech. And here's my thing. If Trump is so about free speech, is he going to condemn the ADL and the Israel lobby from pushing the suspension of students and people at their jobs for speaking out against the genocide? Is he going to do that? Is he going to go against his masters at APAC? See, that's the thing, man. Corporal Commander says, oh, sorry about that. Let me see. Bad Wolf says, I don't need to know the details of your sex life. Are you assaulting children? If not, it's your business. Please don't force me to listen to it. And that's the thing. It's not. Okay, here's the funny part. I don't want to get in too deep into this, right? But when people say don't force me into it, it's like if I talk about me having a boyfriend, then of course to some people, oh, you're putting that in my face. But somebody else, but a straight guy can talk about his wife, right? Or I saw in an elementary school where the teacher, he got permission from the principal to propose to his girlfriend, who's another teacher in that school. And the principal said yes. And he got to propose in front of the fourth grade class. But change just one of their genders to be in the same gender. And then what? Oh, but it's a happy thing because it's a straight couple. But when it's a LGBTQ couple, oh, we can't do that. My thing is, like, if you're gonna have rules, then have rules for everybody. Is either give it to everybody or give it to nobody. That's the thing. And the crazy part is we're just asking to be not represented, but allow the same liberties as straight people, as cisgender people. That's all it is. And for some reason, for some people, it's we're rubbing it in your face. It's like we're not rubbing it in your face. It's that you're seeing it more because we actually exist. And we're not being murdered in the streets anymore like we used to be. Right? We're not being, thrown away. We're not being ostracized as much as we used to be. That's it. So when people say that it is, you're rubbing it in their face, it's not you're rubbing it in your face. To the privilege, equality feels like oppression. I'm just being real with you. So my thing is, like, if you're okay with people talking about their spouse or people talking about, their married couple, married life, then hey, equality, right? You might disagree with me, but I'm just putting in my 2 cents. Teresa says Trump wants to take SNAP benefits from people. I think his inheritance should be took from him. Chris C says, criminal how we don't even get a healthcare bill during a pandemic. Yeah, that should have been, one of the number one things, right? Colin says, yeah, cry baby anti-vaxxers, even though you have to be jabbed for like a dozen diseases other than the pandemic to be in the military. Yeah, here's the thing though. I think I agree with a friend that's a physician, is that the rollout was terrible. And these companies shouldn't have been able to make a profit at all. And also the options for people to do alternatives should have also been advertised and encouraged as well, you know. And then on top of it, the contact tracing, the, you know, making sure to take people's temperatures outside, and then paying people to stay home, paying them to stay home, and then stopping, for instance, putting a moratorium on rents, mortgages, car payments, including business rents, you know, like for small companies, for small, medium-sized companies, like, you know, and not pausing it, but like canceling it for you know, that month or two, right? So that people won't have to worry about paying it. And then for the mortgages, they won't put the payments on the back end. No, it's just cancel, you know, because if you can dump $4 trillion into the markets for the big corporations, you can dump $4 trillion into the pockets of American people and make sure that they're okay. So that's the thing. Like, and plus, we should actually have more faith in our healthcare system, but because it's for profit, that's one of the reasons why we don't have as much faith in our healthcare system as we should, because of the profit seeking. So really, it's the corporation's fault. I fault the corporations for all this. Let's do a couple more. Hen Steve says, so no new wars except the one against Panama. Right? Like, why are we going to try to take something from them that's theirs? IB007 says, why are you expanding your territory? We don't need to expand territory. Why are we going to expand territory when we can't even take care of the people that we have in this country already? Leah says they can't even take care of his people, that they don't need more. Exactly. That's what I was just saying, man. Whatever man says, Mars itches like Chappelle. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's hilarious. Just making sure I get to people who I haven't said or commented. See, Lewis Gordon says, I voted for Joe Stein, and I can't feel sorry for anyone who can't understand how important it is to vote against the two-party system. I understand, Lewis. Here's the thing. Propaganda is a hell of a drug. And I feel like we have to give people grace, because some people are still just learning what we are learning. There was a phrase that was said at an event that I was at a few days ago, and I think it's a really good one. And I'm going to share it with you because I think it's important. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah. Comrade said, we cannot claim the moral high ground just because we got here first. Meaning that, yes, we're at the right position, but we were at the wrong position at one time too. And we're going to have to be patient and wait for some people to arrive. Now, time's getting very hairy, and we may not have to wait. We probably just going to have to drag them along. But at the same time, we're going to have to give them some grace because they're just waking up. Like, we've been awake for 45 minutes to a half an hour, and so we can see the light more clearly and things like that. But some people are still wiping their eyes. They're probably still just, the light's too bright. So, you know, and it's easier said than done. I'm trying to do it too. I'm trying to give people grace. It's hard. It is very hard. But I understand what you mean. But we have to let that compassion, shine through in that way. But yeah, I understand you, man. I understand you. Kate Mack says, Chris, yeah, or Planet Trump. All right, so let's get into the final. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me do the patron shout out. All right, so let's get into this. So I am doing good on time. I am so proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. All right. All right. So thank you to all the patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this important work. You guys make this absolutely possible. And here are the tiers. Here we go, people. We have Mega JB Faunters, Super Duper JB Faunters, Super JB Faunters, JB Faunters, Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you to new member Sam Kiefer. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. You guys make this absolutely possible. I just want to thank all y'all for all that you guys do. And you guys help me out greatly. So with that, I thank you. And also, in addition to, and furthermore, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the final segment, shall we? All right. So we're going to talk about furniture. Oh, planned obsolescence. Yes, you guys have probably heard that word before. We're really going to get into this because this is going to be an interesting one. And so I just want to get into this because we have a conversation that I want to have in regards to furniture. And I just want to give a shout out to Roger Meadows for this segment because this is a story he submitted. And I think it's a good one because it's right up my alley. Sorry. So a few years ago, I used to work for Ashley Furniture Home Store, and I was a sales associate, and I sold furniture and mattresses to people day in and day out. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. Furniture can be a very big ticket item, depending on the quality, and it can last you a lifetime or it can last you a short while. Now, I've seen my fair share of good and bad furniture, and let me tell you, a lot of the bad ones are everywhere. Now, whether you go to Ashley, City Furniture, Rooms to Go, Canes, or IKEA, shoddy furniture is easy to find. But why? One word: profit. So I want to react to this clip from More Perfect Union, and we're going to learn in more detail about how furniture is made to be more shoddy. And again, I just want to shout out Roger Meadows about this story. Let's get into this. This is entitled, It's Not Just Wayfair.
So I've been looking for a coffee.
So it's not just Wayfair. Why does all of your furniture fall apart? So we're going to get into that. So let me go to my timestamp. All right, let's go.
There was no Wayfair or Overstock or Amazon when my parents bought their first home in the late 80s in Ohio. There wasn't even an IKEA in our town. They relied on their neighbors and community to get used furniture like this side table. I found the exact same one on a furniture resale site. It's worth over $1,000. Definitely not something they'd have been able to afford at the time. When I moved into my first apartment in the city, they gave it to me. There's still a little bit of water damage, but it still looks good and it's standing sturdy. But when I look around at the furniture I bought myself, it's mostly boring IKEA designs, some Eames dupes, and literally outdoor furniture from Amazon. I doubt any of it will last till my next apartment, let alone the next generation.
It comes in pieces. If you have to like re-screw it, you've already ruined it because it's not actually wood.
I was talking about this with my coworker Gerald, and he showed me this beautiful table his grandmother bought in the 90s.
Damn, when did it become rare to actually have a solid wood table? When did this kind of thing stop being accessible to someone like my grandma, average income, and has this like heirloom table? There's nothing rickety on that table at all.
If you bought furniture in the US before the mid-2000s, chances are it was made in North Carolina. Both of these tables were, this one by a company called Broyhill, and this one by Henderson, founded by former Broyhill employees.
You guys remember Broyhill? Like, that company that company's been around, right? And I was, and you guys remember, those big, pieces of furniture, that wood furniture that was heavy, right? It has some heft to it. And so I remember those furniture and that furniture lasted forever. I mean, that furniture was like a Keith Sweat song, like "Make it last forever." Oh my gosh. But yeah. Okay, let's continue.
These days, North Carolina's furniture industry isn't doing so well, but when Broyhill was founded in 1926, it was kind of the perfect place to get into the furniture business. The state's first furniture factory had opened in the 1880s in a city called High Point. Then, at the turn of the century, High Point started holding a huge furniture expo, where buyers spent billions of dollars on furnishings to sell in stores across the country. By the 60s, a full 60% of all furniture made in America would come from this 125-mile radius. And by the 80s, it had earned the nickname the Furniture Capital of America, beating out Chicago, New York City, and even Grand Rapids, Michigan, which was literally called Furniture City at the time. How did they do it? Well, making furniture comes down to 4 things: design, material, production, and transportation. North Carolina furniture makers were uniquely positioned to have an edge on all 4 of those. They didn't spend time or money on design, they just copied the pieces made by popular furniture companies of the day. And as for materials,
hang on, let's stop there. They copied. So really, this is why when people say, well, capitalism breeds innovation, no, it doesn't. Because they're literally copies upon copies upon copies. Like, how many different types of Cheerios do we really need? You got fruit Cheerios, you got apple cinnamon Cheerios, you got honey nut Cheerios, you got regular Cheerios, you got chocolate Cheerios, you got frosted Cheerios. What's next? Wasabi Cheerios? Like, come on now. Like, we have the same thing, just in different colors. Right? There's really no difference. It's just, it's, new color, that's just the way capitalism operates. So let's get into materials. This is the one I really want to get into.
Half the state is forest, full of hardwood trees, pine, oak, chestnut, and maple, perfect for making sturdy furniture. They found ways to cut production costs by making the furniture with cheaper woods and then covering it in hardwood veneers. Other ways to cut costs? Those early furniture companies focused on mass producing a few basic items, and they had access to a huge pool of cheap labor willing to do it.
So let's get into this. So one of the first things she talked about was wood veneers. So that's just something that we're taught in furniture school. So a wood veneer is basically a thin piece of hardwood that's put over cheap wood or a manufactured type wood in order to give it the visual of being a hardwood. But in reality, once you get that a thin piece of veneer off, you get that cheap ass wood. You got that particle board. You got that manufactured density wood that is basically just an amalgamation of the sawdust and wood chippings, right? And so that's all it basically is. But they do that to save costs because let's say if you had a hard oak dresser, right? Number one, it's going to be significantly heavier, right? Because it's dense. But also, it's going to be more expensive because, well, you had to make that out of all pure oak. Versus if you use the shavings from many different types of woods and then just glued them together and compressed them. And then you just took a thin layer of that oak and placed it on top. Well, you didn't have to spend as much money. And so people think that they got oak, but in reality, they actually didn't get oak, right? They just got a veneer of oak. And so then, yes, also it's lighter. So therefore, it's easier to transport. And easier to transport, it being lighter also means fuel costs go down, right? Because you don't have to have transport something that's heavy. Number two, when it comes to the movers, you know, the people who transport the furniture and things like that, there's less energy output from them, which means they're able to do more deliveries and things like that. So it's a cost cutting issue. And the thing is that even though they cut the cost, what happens? The quality goes down, okay? That's exactly what happens. But a lot of times, you know, it's like, you know, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to risk the quality of something? You know, that's the tough part. All right, let's continue.
They had access to a huge pool of cheap labor willing to do it.
Also, a huge pool of cheap labor. So this is where we get into the aspect that capitalism brings, is that the cheap labor, when it comes to creating furniture, is something that makes me think about, and a lot of times, you know, this is really before the huge boom of a lot of immigrants that were from the global south that were allowed to come in, right? So you have a lot of immigrants that come from African countries, South American countries, you know, Asia, you know, especially East Asia, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. You have a lot of these countries that were, you know, more open after the civil rights era, right? So a lot of what was happening here is actually pre-civil rights era. So who do you think the cheap labor came from? Yeah, people like, you know, that were the same age as my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, right? So that's who the cheap labor came from. So that's exploitation. So let's get into it.
After low crop prices in the late 1800s ushered in an agricultural depression, North Carolina's black sharecroppers and poor white tenant farmers quit farming and got better jobs in furniture factories. They were paid about $821 per year, about half of what the furniture workers in the North were paid. Race was a huge factor in keeping wages low. As one economic geographer wrote in 1934, a great black laboring force has always done the hard labor of the South and is willing to do so and oftentimes do it better for less wages than those paid the white man.
Okay, so now race definitely comes into the picture. So let's get into this. So Black Americans are essentially the undocumented immigrants of the past. Exploited more and paid less. We really couldn't fight with our employer for workers' rights because there weren't worker protections for Black Americans. Or if there were any, it wasn't enforced. We would just be fired and they could replace us with someone else willing to take the exploitation out of desperation. So this is how we know that, you know, even if, like when I was talking in the previous segment, even if they were just completely shut the border down and deport all the undocumented immigrants, there's going to be another class that's going to be exploited, or another group that's going to be exploited. They're not going to cede worker protections for us. They're not going to cede us, oh, well, all the undocumented immigrants are gone, so guess what? We're going to be able to have these jobs. They're going to be good paying jobs. No, they're not. These cappies are not going to go down without a fight. They're going to try to exploit the shit out of every single one of us. And if it's not going to be undocumented immigrants, it's going to be us, our black asses. Because guess what? In that ladder, undocumented immigrants may be at the bottom right now, technically, when it comes to labor. But we're right there. And guess what? You take them away, who's the bottom? Right? This is why worker solidarity is so important among us, because the thing is, it's like we can't see ourselves above another people. That's the point, man. The moment you start to see yourself above another people, that's when you start to divide the working class, man. You gotta tame that. All right, let's continue. Let me see, where's my next point?
Factory owners also exploited the racial divide to prevent workers from unionizing, allowing them to pay both black and white workers less. Obviously, having such low wages was a big part of why North Carolina could make furniture so much cheaper than New York and Chicago and Michigan. But this exact pattern, the industry moving its center to wherever the cheapest labor was, would repeat itself in less than a century. We'll get to that in a minute. The other big reason High Point became America's furniture capital was that it was perfectly located to transport all that furniture to stores across the country. It sat on the highest point of this railroad line. Get it? High Point. This one is important because if there's one enduring truth about furniture, it's that it's a pain in the ass to move.
Pivot! Pivot! Pivot!
So to buy furniture back then, you'd pick out something from a showroom near you. Then it would be carefully shipped to you by trusted professionals, and you'd probably keep that same piece for decades, maybe even pass it down to your kids. Even as globalization started shifting other industries in the 70s and 80s, High Point remained the center of US furniture manufacturing. Because how would you even ship a king-size bed across the ocean? The way to do it, it turns out, is so simple a moose can explain it.
The idea is beautiful Swedish design furniture at our lowest possible price. You pick up your catalog, choose the item, pick it up, take it home, and put it together.
Right. So those beautiful Swedish designs tended to be simple and focus on detachable elements so that everything could fit in a flat pack box. They also used lighter materials like MDF and particle board, which are made from wood chips, sawdust, and shavings glued together in the shape of a board. Knockdown furniture, as it's also called, can be shipped easily and more efficiently, and the customers save some of the labor costs by putting it together themselves. When IKEA opened...
It's kind of funny because even though the customers save on the labor cost, the funny part was you're either going to get, you're either going to get charged for time or for money, right? So that's one thing that we used to talk about, right? When I sold furniture, like some people would say, well, we just want to put it together ourselves, so we don't have to pay that extra delivery fee. Because now we just started doing delivery fees. And we will automatically add the delivery fee. Of course, we would tell you that we're adding the delivery fee because, we can't just tag it on there. But we would tell you, and then if somebody was like, oh, I don't want to pay that delivery fee, well, then it's like, okay, well, do you want to put it together yourself? And some people would say, yeah, we can put it together ourselves, but at the same time, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to do, especially, some people, they may not have, physical ability to be able to move furniture around like that. And so, of course, unfortunately, because, they wanted to, sell it around the world, well, they also made it more modular, but in making it more modular, you have to make it more lighter to be able to move around, number one. And number two, that's why you had the MDF and then the particle board. And then on top of that, made out of cheaper products. I mean, this is basically the equivalent of having self-checkout now, right? Like they'll say that we're passing on the savings to you, but it's like, are you really even saving anything though? For the most part, it's just an interesting concept,
Opened its first store in the US in 1985, only 2% of the furniture in the US was flat packed. Within 7 years, it was up to 10%.
It definitely readjusted what people expect. No one is expecting a full piece of furniture to arrive at their doorstep fully assembled.
With the rise of flat-packed furniture, North Carolina was starting to lose some of its competitive edge because now it wasn't that important for factories to be located close to the retail stores. Remember how North Carolina's cheap labor made it the manufacturing center of the US? Well, you know who has even cheaper labor than North Carolina? China. That became extremely relevant in 1999 with the US-China World Trade Organization Agreement. The US agreed to cut tariffs on Chinese imports, and China would do the same for US imports. This was meant to foster more trade.
We'll be able to export products without exporting jobs.
What actually happened was the opposite of that. Through the 2000s, American furniture makers started moving factories from North Carolina to China, laying off more than 1,000 American workers a year. By 2000,
so looks like Willie P was the one who signed NAFTA. Is one of the reasons why a lot of people lost their jobs, and they wonder why the Democrats are hated by so many working class people, especially within the Rust Belt and in Middle America. Boy, I tell you.
2005, 36% of their sales came from furniture they imported from China. But don't worry, that backfired for them pretty quickly. The Chinese factory owners they contracted with learned how to make American-style furniture and started their own companies competing directly with US manufacturers. Here's how important cheap labor is. Chinese companies could import US lumber, make the furniture, ship it back to the US for assembly, and still afford to sell it for less than American companies could. Within 7 years, 60% of the US furniture market was controlled by Chinese companies. There were 700,000 Americans working in furniture manufacturing in 2000. By 2010, it was down to about 350,000, half the industry gone in a decade. Factory closures hit North Carolina the hardest. Entire towns were left unemployed.
That is what we live off of here in this county is furniture.
And in 2007, as if to put salt in the wound, IKEA opened a warehouse just an hour away from High Point.
So, this has had a gigantic, devastating effect on America, as far as what they did in regards to NAFTA and the World Trade Organization. NAFTA and other trade agreements devastated the working class, especially in smaller towns and cities. So China was able to get these jobs because the corporations were so willing to take them away from Americans and give them to the Chinese. So, but here's the thing, China's not to blame. It's just American corporations are. It's just like if you have a bike as a child and you enjoy that bike, you love riding that bike, but your parent takes that bike away and gives it to the neighbor kid across the street who doesn't have a bike, are you going to blame the neighbor kid for accepting the bike? Are you going to blame them for it? Or are you going to blame the parent for taking the bike away? See what I mean? And so that's the problem, is that they took the bike away. And then China was able to blow up their country very quickly. And now they're quickly becoming the world's top economic superpower, because they also learned from these American companies, and then they ditched the American companies and then started their own companies to start to sell their own stuff. So they realized, okay, yeah, these guys are also trying to exploit us for cheap labor, but guess what? We're going to have our own businesses and we're not going to exploit our workers anymore. And so now that whole ethos, that mentality that, oh, well, Chinese, workers are all exploited, that's out the window. Of course, exploitation still probably happens, but probably on a lot smaller doses now. And so a lot of Chinese workers they're unionized and they're making a living wage now. If you go on Red Note, you will see a lot of Chinese people are living well within their means because the cost of living is actually decent, right? A lot of Chinese people, like, their rent is a quarter of what they make per month. So if you're making $4,000 a month, your rent's only $1,000, right? That's the equivalent of what will be here, right? If you're making $4,000 a month. So if they're making $1,000 a month, well, your rent's $250. You see what I mean? And that's basically the equivalent of what, if you're making, that's the equivalent of what's going on in China right now, right? And I was looking at their grocery hauls. My God, they could afford carts and carts full of groceries because, right, the cost for everything is a lot lower. Plus, they got a lot of local farms and stuff like that where people are able to bring in their produce and stuff. So, the cost of living is a lot better there. So let's continue.
There's one more important part of IKEA's strategy that the Moose didn't mention, but you can see it in this IKEA ad from 2002 that Spike Jonze directed for some reason.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, and the new one is much better.
In other words, forget heirlooms for your grandkids, throw away your old furniture, and buy new. And they got people to do it by continuously dropping prices. Get the prices down and you increase sales. We created that demand, not the consumer, a former IKEA exec told The Guardian. Look at this IKEA catalog from 1985, the year the first US store opened. These 4 iconic products are still for sale today, but they cost less now than they did back then. How is that possible? Before I answer that, I need to tell you about one more thing that disrupted the furniture industry, racksandstands.com. Never heard of them? Well, you've probably bought something from them, or as they're known today, Wayfair. At first, racksandstands.com only sold, racks and stands, but today Wayfair sells every type of home furnishing. They have a massive catalog of more than 14 million products. Compare that to IKEA's measly 12,000. But their strategy has remained the same since the Racks and Stands days. Drop shipping Chinese-made furniture with free delivery.
It's important to note that Wayfair doesn't design anything. They're just working with over 11,000 suppliers. They're going to take the photos, add it to their website. They might give it a different name. Then when a customer goes on to a Wayfair and buys that lamp, they'll go, oh, hey, supplier, I need you to fulfill this order for me. Can you please package it up and deliver it to this person? You don't have to own any of the supply and you can still sell it.
All right. So that's another variable that a lot of people, may not have thought about. But I want to go into this. So Wayfair is essentially the middleman, right? It's like Amazon. It's a marketplace for website for other producers so that they get a cut of the profits for producing and being able to have for producers to be able to have their products on the website and being featured on it. So when I was at Ashley Furniture, we had our own products at City Furniture, Rooms to Go, and American Signature. And now you can find Ashley Furniture products on Amazon. And one of the things about working at Ashley Furniture is also a furniture manufacturer. They just don't sell furniture, they manufacture it too. So you have Ashley Furniture and then Ashley Furniture Home Store, which is the retail locations where they sell the furniture. And so, of course, there's factories here in Orlando, right? Not here in Orlando, I'm sorry. There's factories in, I think, Brandon, I think it is. It's going west. But yes, they literally have the factories there. They produce the furniture there, and then they ship it there. That's why Ashley Furniture typically, you know, even though they're kind of middle price point, they can actually sell their furniture for a little bit cheaper because they are able to save on that because there is no middleman, right? So when it comes to Ashley Furniture, like, yeah, our own products were in other stores too. So there was other middlemen trying to make money off of Ashley Furniture.
Direct-to-consumer brands popped up throughout the 2010s. Most of them use a fast fashion business model. Instead of selling a few well-made pieces that could last a lifetime, they have every single micro-aesthetic possible. Wayfair today is actually these 5 sites, each focusing on a different style and price point. And since consumers started focusing more on trends than quality, manufacturers realized they could cut all kinds of corners: cheaper materials and shoddy construction. This is what I wanted to dig into with Coco.
If I had to guess, this was made 70s, maybe 80s.
We chose to compare these two tables because they seemed representative of their eras. The Wayfair table was made in China. It's shipped partially disassembled in a flat pack box, and it's marketed for its classic style, not to last long, but to match a customer's current aesthetic preference.
All right, so let's get into this because I think this is something that a lot of us have observed, especially with brand new furniture. If you purchase brand new furniture within the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, maybe. But this is the issue with today's furniture where form matters more than function. Durability takes a backseat and is prioritized much higher than quality. This is why, you know, these companies engage in what I like to call planned obsolescence. So I want to stop here for a second. I just want to share with you guys what is planned obsolescence. So this is something that I think a lot of people need to get familiar with, this particular term, because planned obsolescence is a nasty thing, right? So let me share this with you guys. So you guys know exactly what this means. So, all right. So what is planned obsolescence? Let me enlarge just so you guys can see very well. And am I enlarged? Nope. Let's change that. All right. So what is planned obsolescence? Planned obsolescence describes the practice of designing products to break quickly or become obsolete in the short to mid-term. The general idea behind this is to encourage sales of new products and upgrades, a practice that has been banned in some countries. The strategy is attributed to the motor industry in the United States, where in 1924, General Motors executive Alfred P. Sloan Jr. suggested launching new models every year to keep sales moving. So that is planned obsolescence, making it the plan to make it obsolete so that you buy more of it, right? I liken it to like this. For instance, remember how back in the day you would have a refrigerator and that refrigerator lasts like 20, 30 years, right? Now you get a new refrigerator, it may last you a decade, may, right? So many different things that now break down easy over time. They're made of cheaper materials, but that's also planned because they want you to keep coming back to buy more, buy more, buy more, right? It's the same thing when it comes to clothes and shoes, fast fashion. It's the same thing. Hell, planned obsolescence is really in healthcare too. Because if you are easily keep getting sick and if there's no cure, then guess what? You have to keep coming back. See what I mean? Planned obsolescence is everywhere. That's part of capitalism because it depresses quality for the sake of profit so that it can keep on growing. So I'm glad I was able to share that with you guys because a lot of times people don't realize, man, these companies, it's nefarious, right? They sell you this so you can keep getting profit. They can keep getting profit, and they can keep selling you products. So let's go back into the next one. So
This table from Ethan Allen was likely made in North Carolina. It was probably delivered in a single piece, and it was built with the classic style so that it could be used for generations.
you guys remember Ethan Allen? I think there's still an Ethan Allen here in Orlando. But yeah, Ethan Allen's actually one of those more premium type of furniture companies that, you know, you have to have some experience to just sell in Ethan Allen. Ethan Allen and Bears. I know that those two are more the higher end furniture stores, but you know, that's some solid furniture typically. I don't know how they are now, but definitely it's definitely more solid than it was back in the day. I'm sorry, it definitely was solid back in the day, but I'm not sure exactly as of right now. But let's continue.
This is obviously a maple table.
Yeah.
What's very exciting is the 2-tier level. That's something that you don't really see anymore.
It also has a solid wood drawer.
Modern drawers are always going to be made out of like plywood or particle board.
And that's when there are drawers at all.
Companies are hesitant to put drawers and doors in storage because that just makes the product so much more expensive.
The other thing to note about this drawer is the way it's attached to the table.
These beautiful dovetail joints that you can kind of see
Yeah.
as they flare out. And that just helps with grip and the joinery, the way that it's connected, making for really solid construction. A really beautiful design feature and lends itself to the durability of the overall piece.
What's the less good way to join?
Oh man, I mean, you can see everything from it just glued or pinned in place. There's probably 100 different ways that you could make this drawer, but the dovetail would be in the top 5 ways in terms of quality.
Yeah. First up,
So when they talked about that, actually, that was one of the things that was taught to us as well, is we had to look at the quality of the pieces. And, you know, as we were being trained, we actually had to look at the different qualities of the pieces by opening them up. And once you looked at it, you found that, I mean, like, depending on the higher end pieces were very durable. Like one of the trainers, he was actually able to put one of the drawers, take one of the drawers out, put it on the floor, and he actually stepped inside of it. This guy had to be 210, 220, 6'2", you know, was able to stand inside of one of the drawers and the drawer wouldn't break, you know. But if he were to do one of the lower cost drawers, he would have broke that bitch. He would have broke it. My goodness. But the thing is like, look, he, you know, but that's the thing. They also do different price points. But the thing is, like, the higher price point, the more durability it was. I'm telling you right now. That's something that a lot of people, you know, need to take into consideration. All right, we're going to be getting into that in a second.
a materials test.
Okay, so I'm going to start in this one area where you do see a little bit of water damage here. So obviously this looks like this is still the maple. So my guess would be that this is actually solid maple and not veneered at all. I don't know if you saw that water damage that was there, but just by knocking it down, I could very easily sand this entire thing and refinish it, no problem.
Meanwhile, the Wayfair table.
So as you can see, we've got our primer layer underneath, and we also have MDF, a medium density fiberboard. The dust from MDF is far more dangerous than the dust of plywood or any sawdust. It's also really bad for water. Old IKEA lac tables or something that get really bubbly, that's because water has penetrated the MDF layer.
Next, we decided to
So the MDF is like plentiful in these furniture stores. I'm gonna tell you right now. Or if you want to go to get really cheap furniture, say you go to Walmart, something that you have to put together is inside of a flat black box. and then you put it together yourself. It's mostly made out of medium density fiberboard, MDF, or particle board, like the desk that I'm using right now to do this stream. But the thing is like, yeah, that's what they use, especially because that is what is cheap, right? And they can give it to you at that cheap price, but at the same time, like she said, the dust from that is actually more toxic for you, right? Which goes into show how nefarious companies are, because they really don't care about your health when it comes to their products. And so once they put it together, it's like, well, you know, it can be toxic for people. We really don't care. And so it sucks, but it is what it is.
To test how strong the tables were with a little tensile strength test.
Okay, let's see this next one. Okay, beautiful. Let's go check out our chunks. First of all, this is really impressive to me, like super impressive that it really only broke along the seam line. And you can tell that that is maple all the way through. And also like around the apron, like this is still screwed together.
So let's continue on, because I want to talk about this next piece here. So
MDF and particle board instead of solid wood frames, and in place of traditional joinery techniques, they attach the pieces together with brackets so you can assemble it at home. Today's couches also cut corners on leather quality and use lower density foam inside. It's no wonder couches are less comfortable and don't last as long. This is also how IKEA manages to keep lowering the price on the same item, and the strategy works. Today, IKEA reports selling one Billy bookcase every 5 seconds and making one every 3 seconds. All these trends have caused furniture to get cheaper relative to the price of other consumer goods. Today, you can furnish an apartment for less than the cost of 1 month's rent in some places. And I think it's important to say here, for a lot of us, fast furniture is our only option. As housing prices skyrocket and wages stay stagnant, most of us can't afford new high-quality furniture, and looking for stuff secondhand is time-intensive. So
let's stop there just for a second, because I want to also get into this when it comes to the cost. It says this is the issue of furniture today, where you know the economic factor. You know, it means that many of us can't buy new furniture of yesterday. So we're given the shoddy, cheap furniture today, where the companies still make profit, but we have to keep buying furniture over and over because it's low quality. So it's definitely not your grandma's floor model TV. That's for damn sure. Remember floor model TVs? Remember being sick as a little kid, and you had to stay home and watch Price is Right or General Hospital. And the Price is Right came on, and then General Hospital came on, or The Young and the Restless. And you watching it on that big old floor model TV. Don't get me started. Watching their stories. Memories. All right, let's continue on.
Until we solve these issues, fast furniture probably isn't going anywhere. That was especially evident during the pandemic. During the lockdown, I started working from home and bought a desk from Wayfair, and I wasn't the only one. Wayfair was up 50% in customers. Fast furniture hasn't even reached its peak, but it's already led us to dystopian places, like Amazon announcing a $20 couch. You know that thing's gonna end up in a landfill within a year. Now, to sum things up, I'm gonna turn to an unexpected source.
North Carolina, you were the furniture capital of the world, but now so much of that business has been stolen from you, and it's made in China and other places. You buy some of these chairs that they sell you now, they break after about 2 months. People are laying on the floor. And then on top of it all, you get sued because they fell out of a chair at a hotel.
That sounds a little too specific to be hypothetical.
Okay, look, I don't mean to laugh, but number one, that was very specific. Donald Trump is too rich to be talking about that type of stuff. Like, right? And another thing is, that's true. Like, this stuff is so cheap. Like, how, you can't even, child. Oh my gosh.
At first glance, this narrative sounds really similar to the one I've told you, but they do differ in some key ways, so let's take it one part at a time. First, it's true that North Carolina furniture jobs moved overseas, but it's worth noting that these were still decisions made by CEOs. If more companies had prioritized their workers over profits during that transition, the impact could have been less severe on American workers. The other claim Trump makes is that furniture got worse because of this move to China. But just because your furniture was made in Asia, it doesn't mean it's inherently worse.
When you visit these factories, there's like beautiful craftsmen and women bringing these products to life and giving them individual care and attention.
Plus, a single factory is probably making high, medium, and low quality furniture.
This just goes to what I say, you know, the higher end or the higher price points. So if you go to a furniture store, of course, they're going to have their high, medium, and low price points, right? And so, of course, the lower price points are the people, you know, the cheaper it is, the more people can afford it. That means it's going to be more plentiful within the furniture store. So you're going to have more of those than you are going to have the higher price points, because as people's, you know, cost of living continues to get higher, then less and less people will be able to afford the higher quality. That's just the way it goes.
All the furniture companies are sourcing from like the same 10 major places.
So Wayfair stuff, Restoration Hardware stuff could be being made by the same
Crate and
factory.
Barrel, yeah, they could all be made by the same factory very easily.
And what you don't hear Trump talk about is what happens when those retailers set super low prices. It puts the burden on factories to meet those price points.
The factories are in bidding wars against each other.
Right.
You're sending out one spec, and sometimes you're getting two different samples from two different places, and oftentimes you're going with the cheapest one.
Only one person can win that
Totally.
contract. That's how you end up with videos like these, showing furniture workers in Vietnam brought in to eat, sleep, and work at the factory.
So this is the point, whenever they have these low price points, well, they have to pay the workers even less. And if they're not going to be paying the workers even less, then what are they also going to have to do? They have to cut corners. Those corners they cut when it comes to safety regulations, or the corners that they cut are for quality regulations, right? When the quality goes down, then it's just not going to be as good. And even, you know, the safety regulations when it comes to like the type, like how toxic are the glues that are being used in some of these furnitures? How toxic are the foams being used in some of this furniture, right? Some of these things that a lot of times people don't talk about, you know, some of the chemicals that are used within the fabrics and stuff. You know, of course, you know, we have some set standards, but standards aren't really that high of a quality. It's just a minimal standard so that, you know, we won't get super sick when we come in contact with it. But that's ultimately how it goes. So that's how they make their profit.
The only people positively benefiting are people who are like C-level executives who basically show investors, oh, look at how much profit I've driven.
Trump claims to have the solution for the entire American furniture industry: tariffs.
All of your furniture makers are going to come back bigger and stronger and better than ever before.
That's an interesting promise, because Trump had already imposed higher tariffs on China during his first term, and Biden left those tariffs in place. So they've been in effect for nearly a decade now, and still furniture jobs have continued to decline in North Carolina. Chinese manufacturers simply moved their factories to countries that aren't subject to US tariffs, like Vietnam. The other reason tariffs aren't going to bring jobs back for US furniture workers is that tariffs are just one small part of a furniture company's overhead costs.
Human labor is the most valuable thing on the planet.
All right. So, of course, we talked about tariffs earlier in the prior segment. When it comes to tariffs, it's just going to be passing on the cost to the consumer, because tariffs are, the companies aren't going to pay them. You, the American, you're going to be the one that pays for them. So it's true that manufacturing will need to come back, but that depends on who's running the company rather than merely changing their minds. So that's another variable.
It's always the question of where can we find the cheapest human labor.
So the factories will just follow wherever the cheapest labor
Absolutely.
is. Wages have always been the driving force behind the furniture industry's move, first from Michigan, Chicago, and New York to North Carolina, then to China, and now to Vietnam and other countries.
See how capitalism works? See, it'll start in places up north, right? See, Michigan, Chicago, and New York. Then it goes to North Carolina. Then it goes over to China. Then it goes to Vietnam and other countries. And it's going to keep bouncing around until it can find the cheapest spot, But then what's going to happen when it can't find any more spots? Well, guess what? The quality of the furniture is going to go down even further, right? Or then the prices of these furniture is going to go up. And so that's the part about capitalism, right? Because look, if these companies were worker owned, they probably would still be in Michigan, Chicago, and New York. They probably wouldn't have moved. We'll get a little bit more into that in a little bit, but just wanted to point that out.
And what effect will tariffs have on consumers? Well, furniture companies claim tariffs will force them to raise prices, but we should be skeptical of that narrative as well. IKEA's strategy of lowering prices to increase consumer demand shows that their prices can and will change regardless of various countries' trade policy. Tariffs are neither a magic bullet to bring back jobs, nor are they the only reason that you might pay higher prices. The reason why nearly 500,000 American furniture workers lost their jobs is the same reason your couch sucks. Choices made by modern multinational corporations to prioritize profits at the expense of workers and consumers. So, if we want to make America great at domestic furniture production again, how do we do it? Well, North Carolina's furniture industry is not dead. High Point.
All right, so let's get into this because I'm going to actually disagree with her for a second.
Market still brings in $6.73 billion into the state each year. That's the equivalent of 4 Super Bowls. And big CEOs can follow the example of people like John Bassett, who fought tooth and nail to keep his furniture business in the US, saving hundreds of jobs. He actually got a lot of hate for doing that, from other furniture manufacturers, Washington lobbyists, and right-wing American economists. Beth Macy, who profiled Bassett for her book Factory Man, says that one economist told her, "In reality, we shouldn't be making bedroom furniture anymore in the United States." But Bassett believed those jobs had value and that they were important to his community. For workers in the Piedmont region, furniture manufacturing was a good, decent-paying job that people had pride in. If America is going to play a role in furniture manufacturing again, we need more people like Bassett who value both quality products and good jobs, instead of pitting consumers and workers against each other.
Now, here is where I disagree with this person. Let me enlarge just so y'all can see myself. We do not need any more big CEOs at the top. Depending on a benevolent CEO to do the right thing in a capitalist system where profit reigns supreme is never going to work. What's the better solution? Well, I'm glad you asked. Workers should collectively own the manufacturer and operate it democratically. From the producers of the raw materials all the way to the sales floor and delivery. If you put the power in the hands of the workers, this ensures that the quality and jobs remain in America. This type of structure is called a worker cooperative or a worker co-op. In this way, the workers share the profits and make a living wage as well. Workers aren't going to screw over their own environment for a profit because they have to live there. They're not going to ship their own jobs overseas because they need those jobs. They're going to ensure the quality because they need their products to have real value, and customer satisfaction will ensure that. This is why we need to leave capitalism and go the way of a worker-centered economic system. Really great points. But we got to get workers in power and the corporate dictators out. So go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much. Let's head into the chats and then we will head on out. All right, looks like we're good on the Rumble. Let's go into Rockfin. All right. Okie dokie. So thank you for this tip, Roger. He says, if thy eye offends thee, then turn away or turn the channel. We got 435 congressional districts represented by one Congress member who all can't seem to come together and do what's right by us. And Trump wants to add more congressional districts. Oh, thank you for saying it, because that's what I've been trying to say. Thank you. Thank you for this. He says, I have a saying: people are not going to move when you want them to move in the direction you wish for them to move to. At the end, at the speed at which they wish, at which you wish they would. But with some grace and patience, they will eventually come around. However, one must also find serenity to accept that they will never will, but the humility that maybe you are the one out of sync and maybe you need to move toward them. It is either going to be outsourced labor to a country with no worker protection, prison labor, non-citizen labor, or automation labor. I propose to Shama, who is in union autopilot mode, you cannot fight 21st century villains with 20th century weapons. The problem is, despite working great 100 years ago, because we were the last country standing out of World War II, so there was no country to outsource to. Today, other countries have built themselves back up, and now the corporations have options. I said to her, union cannot stop your job from being outsourced out of the country unless it's a government union. Musk and Bezos taking NLRB to the Supreme Court to deem it unconstitutional, making unions unconstitutional through proxy. What are you going to do to them when then I propose worker co-ops is the only way? If you watch her response, she was on the HLM, or she was on Heartlands Media. You will see that I have to extend to her a lot of grace because she had no answer for me and she skated the issue. People want to think hard about this. Are we going to put all our time and energy into rebuilding unions when they know they can't, when knowing they can't stop outsourcing, or are we going to blaze a new trail with worker co-ops? Also, hemp can replace wood to rebuild furniture, grows faster with less water, and don't need pesticides, herbicides, and other sides. Plant obsolescence means not built to last. Do not bother and get in between Black moms and their story. and their stories. Yes, the TVs inside the furniture with the stereo on one side and the record player on the other. Bring those back. Yes. Oh man, got me thinking about the Diana Ross album cover. You know, she's in the doorway like this, right? My mom got that album. Or Michael Jackson's Thriller album. Yeah, she got that album too. She got a bunch of albums. She got Atlantic Star. You know, she got she got the Temptations. She got so many of them. Boy, oh boy. She even got Rick James. You know, him in the thigh high boots. Yeah, she got it. Give it to me, baby. I came home last night. He wouldn't make love to me. He went fast asleep. Wouldn't even talk to me. He said, I'm so crazy. Coming home intoxicated. I said, just want to love you. This is why I'm so elated. Come on, girl. Give it to me, baby. Let's go in here, man. So of course, CEB Jack asked, can I get JB an AMA? I want to pick your brain so badly on certain Trump subjects like this. Phase 1 ceasefire win and ERS versus IRS, and how your thoughts compare to mine. I mean, I can possibly do another AMA. I haven't done one in a little bit, but I don't do them too often. I typically try to reserve that for a Q Bounty. That's also linked to my description. You know, I do like, I'll do video responses to questions and stuff like that. But I'll probably do an AMA sometime in the future, though. Co-Commander says, I said yes because Trump's promises are fascism and an expansion of capitalism. Yes, Trump will make good on those promises. Thank you very much. Edwin Cortez says, what's up, JB? Didn't see the inauguration and didn't care. Not a fan of presidents. All they like is the power and not doing anything for the people. Well, that's for damn sure. I agree with that. Chris C says, Cheerios is hilarious, but true example, JB. Good, underrated point. You can tell I'm hungry, right? Whatever man says, wasabi Cheerios. Jacqueline says, when me and my daughter moved into our first flat, we bought a solid wood table and 4 chairs for 50 pounds and got my sofa, which weighs a ton, and a chair free of charge. Wow. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, those good, like heavy sofas, those things last a long time. Edward says, also, when you buy low quality products, it won't last as long, so you'll have to buy another one. For instance, smart TVs last 3 to 5 years. Yep. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the first TVs we got as soon as we moved down here to Orlando, it was a Sharp TV. My grandmother bought it for us. It was yellow. Yes, yellow. It was a yellow Sharp TV. It was a 13-inch TV, right? We've had that TV for God knows how long. We had that TV from, I think it was 88? I think we had it from 88. Wait, no. I think it was from 89 to I want to say 2001, 2002. So yeah, we had that TV for what, 14, 15, so about 12, 13 years. Like that TV stood the test of time, and we dropped it. That old tube TV took a licking and kept on ticking. I remember having to take the metal hangers, put it in, and try to move it around just so that on Saturday mornings we can watch Winnie the Pooh in the morning? Yep, absolutely. But it worked really good when we finally got cable. Oh my goodness. Being able to see Muppet Babies and watch Power Rangers. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh boy. And Darkwing Duck. Side note, Melania Trump was dressed like Darkwing Duck yesterday. When there's trouble, you call DW. Stop me, shut up. All right. Dust James says they closed a furniture factory in Cedar City. North Carolina is my home. Oh, wow. Yeah, they stink with that, man. Roger says Atlantic Star, Star Point, 5-star. Every R&B group has star in it. Your mom was jamming. Oh, she was jamming. Woo, she was jamming on the one, jamming on the one, jamming on the one. Roger knows. He knows the reference. Yes, the TV was yellow, like a canary yellow. I will always remember that TV. Bender says, if those two TVs ever break, be careful when clearing them because there's toxic stuff inside. Ah, okay. Melania was Darkwing. Yep. I am the terror that flaps in the night. Oh, gosh. Sisyphean says cancers in young people have gone up. Makes you wonder about the toxins in our furniture. See, if they were owned by the workers, then we wouldn't be doing that because we would have to work with those toxins, and we're not going to work with those toxins. I'm telling you. Jasmine says the Luddites were right. I gotta find out who were the Luddites because I'm sorry, I'm uneducated on that one. Yeah. Hang on, let me see this. Christy says there was a saying my dad uses. It's called cheaper twice the price. So yeah, that's quite interesting. All right, so let's get down to business. Let's get going. So with that being said, I'm going to head on out. I went over my time because I was supposed to do 90 minutes and I did 3 hours. So I went double. I cannot believe I did it. But anyways, thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Just one thing I want to share with everybody. So just to let you guys know, I was invited by Shama Sawant and Dr. Joe Stein for a worker strike back conference in Seattle, Washington. Is going to be on the 22nd of February. So I plan to go. And I am currently raising funds to be able to get there so I can share my ideas. One of the things I want to do is push, especially for support for worker cooperatives, especially while I'm there, because I think that, like Roger, I agree that that's going to be the future of, of worker power. Because while I say unions are a step in the right direction, they are pushing to make unions obsolete, and companies they can outsource, and there's nothing really unions can do to stop them. So I do think that we need to push towards that. And also organizing outside of electoral politics and building dual power is some of the things I think we're going to be talking about as well. So I would like to go there. I got you, Roger. And so let me share my screen really quick just to show you guys, the fundraising. I will be doing it through Spot Fund because, screw GoFundMe because they've been doing some nefarious things. But so far, I am just about a quarter away. I'm almost 30% of my goal there so far. And so I say here, hello, my name is James Fauntleroy, and I'm an activist, organizer, host, and commentator. I was invited to organizing conference in Seattle, Washington by Dr. Joe Stein and Shama Sawant with Workers Strike Back to attend to come together to share ideas and build to create a movement to push worker power within the U.S. so we can have a more fair and egalitarian society. Being on a fixed income is tough, and so I need help to get there. I want to be able to contribute my unique voice to assist in organizing for the working and poor people in this country so that we can have something better than what the two major parties promise us every 2 to 4 years. We need change and improvement now. We recognize that politicians will not save us, and so we have to take our future into our own hands. I hope to be able to attend on February 22nd, 2025. I will return promptly afterwards so I can get back to my dialysis treatment. I appreciate any contribution to this trip so that I can help more people. I hope you all have a peaceful and wonderful day. So, yes, I will be sharing that into the chat so you guys can see that. But yes, I will be trying to get down there to go to Seattle and, trade ideas and meet and try to push for, something better for workers. Worker power is, basically what we need to do as far as is what we need to have. Worker power. Workers of the world unite, man. So if you guys would like to, you guys can, if you guys would like to share, at the very least, you guys can share that. Very much appreciate it. It means a lot. I've never been to Seattle. I'm just letting you know. And I usually don't, fundraise, like this, but I wanted to do this. And, a lot of people in my circle, members of RBN, members of my Orlando chapter, they actually said that they actually think I should go. So, yes, so that's what I'll be doing. And hopefully it'll be a month from now. So I'll be out there. So, yeah. And then I didn't see this chat on Rockbin. I'm sorry, not Rockbin, Rumble. Just let me share this. Thank you for the love, Jokers for you. Appreciate it very much. That means a lot. That means the most to me. So very much appreciate it. All right, so let's go back into the Rockman really quick because I know Roger said he had one more. He said, when furniture is built to last, it gives forests a chance to catch up and replenish. So good for environment rather than going through it faster than they can replenish. That's another good point, Roger. Yeah, we want the forest to replenish, and you can't do it if you're constantly tearing down and making new furniture over and over and over. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. All right. So with that being said, I am heading on out. I just want to thank you guys. There was a lot more information that I wanted to share, but I just didn't have time to share it. Things got a little bit lengthy here. But like I always tell you, look out for the clips over the next couple days. But water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Yeah, of course. Smoke them if you got them. Of course, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. I love you guys for watching. Thank you so very much. Forehead kisses to all of you. And I will see you guys in the next one. Hey, I know that color shirt. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/JBFaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.